Good morning. We will get started in just a moment here. We've got a little bit of housekeeping to do before we get started, and so that'll give any folks who are still on their way in time to get checked in and join us. Good morning. My name is Brenda Schaefer-Pellenin. My pronouns are she and her. I am a petite, middle-aged Caucasian woman with short blonde hair wearing a beige sweater. I am joined today by my colleague, Ashley Craiglow with the Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging. We'd like to welcome you and join us, and thank you for joining us for today's session on energy assistance and efficiency. Before we start those housekeeping items, we're excited to announce that today's webinar will be accessible to a wider audience. We have arranged for ASL Sign Language interpreters who will be present throughout the session. These interpreters will rotate every 20 minutes, ensuring that everyone can follow the content effectively. Additionally, we are recording the entire webinar with ASL interpretation. The recordings will be available on our YouTube channel for later viewing. Whether you attend the live session or catch up later, you'll have the opportunity to engage with the material in a way that suits your needs. I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can keep up with the latest additions to our video library. We are always looking for suggestions for future webinar topics. If you have suggestions on topics or speakers, please feel free to send those at our email address, which we'll be putting in the chat. Just a couple of items, recommendations. Please keep your microphone set to mute. A note, if you do experience any issues with your bandwidth or audio quality, it often helps to disable your camera. If you'd like, you can enter your first name and the organization or the community that you're from in the chat and what you're hoping to get out of today's session and how you found out about it. If you have questions during today's session, please feel free to enter your questions into the chat and we will address them at the end of the presentation. We will also take additional questions at that time. At the close of today's session, you'll see a quick evaluation of today's session pop up in your browser. Please take a moment to complete that survey. It helps us greatly when planning future sessions. And one last quick reminder to visit our Facebook page for more information about other upcoming sessions, such as updates to Medicare for Open Enrollment 2024, Minnesota's Multi-Sector Blueprint on Aging, and our Housing 101, the Continuum of Options for Older Adults. You can also check out our website at arrowheadaging.org. So who are we? The Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging is designated by the Minnesota Board on Aging as the planning and service area under the authority of Title III of the Older Americans Act. Minnesota has 7 AAAs across the state that are local connections to older Minnesotans and the community supports that they may need as they age. The Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging planning and service areas are, as designated by the Minnesota Board on Aging, include the counties of Aiken, Carlton, Cook, Itasca, Koochiching, Lake, and St. Louis. The Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging is committed to helping older adults maintain their highest level of independence. Area agencies on aging are regional organizations that provide support, services, and information for just about everything that older adults and their families could need. Now I'm going to take a moment to read our Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging land acknowledgement. As we support our mission to help older adults maintain their highest level of independence, we do this while being respectful of the space that we are being welcomed into by Indigenous people. We strive to deepen our understanding of the multiple ways in which people see and understand land and acknowledge the Indigenous people who have relationships with this land. We also acknowledge the decades of historical trauma, loss, and grief experienced by Indigenous people. It is our promise to not only recognize these truths, but also to take action to show support of our Indigenous elders, neighbors, and friends, and understand our place within the past, present, and future of this land. We know that this is just one step in recognizing and honoring the sovereignty of tribal nations. And today we are honored to be joined by presenters from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Arrowhead Area Agency, or Arrowhead Economic Opportunity Agency, my apologies, and Equilibrium 3. The USDA provides various home programs, including low interest loans for purchasing and improving homes, repair loans, and grants for low income homeowners. And today we're joined by Angela Bakovoy. Joining us from AEOA, we have Randy Metfield and Jean Peltier. The AEOA offers energy assistance, weatherization, and conservation programs to support low-income households in northeastern Minnesota. And lastly, we are joined by Cameron Kadlabowski. Hope I got that right. From Equilibrium 3. Eco 3 focuses on promoting energy efficiency, equity, and economic vitality through home energy assessments, weatherization services, and new construction assessments. So thank you to our presenters for being here with us today, and we will start out with Angela. Turn things over to you.
All right. Good morning. Thanks, Brenda, for including rural development on this wonderful presentation here today. I am going to mainly focus on our single-family housing program, but just want to fill you in on some of the other programs that USDA Rural Development has available as well. USDA Rural Development operates over 70 financial assistance programs in a variety of rural applications. Our three main program areas are the Rural Business Program, the Housing Programs, and our Community Programs. In our community programs, USDA provides funding to develop essential community facilities in rural areas, such as municipal water and sewer projects, hospitals, clinics, libraries, emergency service vehicles, and much more. We also have our business programs. USDA provides funding opportunities for rural small businesses through loans, loan guarantees, and grants. These programs aim to bring affordable financing to our rural communities. And then lastly, we have our rural housing service, which includes our single-family housing program that I'm going to talk about today, our multifamily housing programs, and our community facilities programs as well. USDA offers a number of housing programs to assist with home ownership, repairs for current single-family homeowners, and to revitalize, preserve, and finance multifamily housing projects. Today, we'll mainly discuss our Section 504 program, which is our rehabilitation program that is designed to assist low and very low income applicants to purchase home, to repair their home and make them more accessible. We can go to the next slide. This is just a little snippet and picture I like to share. It really outlines of all what rural development can do. We can essentially build a community from the ground up. Like I mentioned, we finance everything from a water tower to the infrastructure that is going right in the ground. Rural development understands that our rural communities are the backbone of our nation and have a broad impact on our economy. And our mission is to assist rural communities in creating prosperity so they are self-sustaining and economically thriving. Next. So here's kind of an outline of our state and our local offices that are helping our communities do all these great things. We have 11 local area offices that process our Section 502 direct and Section 504 repair single-family housing programs throughout Minnesota. Applicants interested in the program should contact the office area of where they serve. I think a majority of you folks that are on the call would be connecting either with our Virginia office or our Bemidji office, and the phone numbers are listed there on the side of the map. Minnesota is a centralized processing state for our direct single-family housing program, so applicants can choose to apply anywhere in the state that they like, and then the application gets sent into a centralized box and then redistributed out. This has allowed us for quicker and faster processing times. Since 2001, USDA has invested more than $2.2 billion in Minnesota's rural community infrastructure. Next. So a little more program information in regards to the single family housing program. Our funding levels are passed by Congress. Our direct program typically receives approximately $1 billion in funding each year. And in our fiscal year 2024, that amount was $880 million. The 504 loan program typically receives about $28 million, and the grant program receives about $25 million. Our fiscal year does run October 1st through September 30th. So we're kind of at the tail end of our funding year this year, but we're hoping that we get allocated similar funding levels for next year. Next. All right, now I'm going to kind of go into some of the housing programs we have available in rural development. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this first one because this is our home purchase program. I'm going to focus more on our 504 rehab program. But the objective of our 502 direct home loan program is to assist low and very low income applicants to obtain decent, safe, and sanitary housing in eligible rural areas. We provide payment assistance, which increases the applicant's repayment ability. And the payment assistance is a type of subsidy that reduces the monthly mortgage payment. And the amount of assistance the applicant can receive is determined by their adjusted household income. Okay, next slide, please. The single family housing program has no down payment. We can finance up to 100% of the appraised value. Closing costs and repairs can be included into the loan as long as the value is there, and no prepayment penalties for the program. The direct loan and guarantees help low and moderate income rural Americans buy safe, affordable housing in rural areas. And they may use the funds to buy or refinance an existing home, build a new one, or buy and prepare a lot for new construction. Okay, next slide. All right, now I'm going to get into the Section 504 Direct Loan and Grant Home Repair Program. More of what most of you are probably interested in hearing more about. So if you can go to the next slide here. So our loan and grant utilization, the objective of the 504 loan and grant program is to help our very low income homeowner occupants in rural areas and help them repair their homes. How can the 504 program be used? Loan funds are available to make general repairs to improve or modernize their home, make it safer or more sanitary, or remove health and safety hazards. For example, roof replacement, flooring upgrades, and adding air conditioning. For homeowners over 62 years of age and older who cannot repay a loan, grant funds are available to remove health or safety hazards or remodel dwellings to make their home more accessible to a household member with a disability. A few examples: replacing a leaking roof or a furnace that has quit leaking or is now red tagged. Applications for a Section 504 direct program can be filed within the local rural development office, the same way as the home purchase program. Next slide. So who qualifies for the program? The property in need of repairs must be an owner-occupied dwelling and the applicant's sole and primary residence. And it also has to be located in a rural eligible area. These rural areas are the same for our 502 program. We do have some local larger MSA areas that are ineligible, including St. Cloud, Mankato, and Rochester. Income limits apply, and we will get into that coming up. Non-retirement assets in excess of $15,000 or $20,000 for an elderly household must be used to reduce the Section 504 request. So if anybody has assets in excess, say somebody has $30,000 in liquid cash assets, they would have to use that $10,000 if it's an elderly household to put towards the project. They must be a U.S. citizen, permanent resident, or qualified alien, and must possess legal capacity to incur loan and grant obligations. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit more on property eligibility. The property must be considered a modest dwelling and may not have a value in excess of the area loan limit. And as you can see there, we go by the HUD limits. The majority of the state is in that blue area, which is 398,600. And then there's goes up to 412,100, kind of in that red shaded area. And then the gray area is ineligible for funding. Tax assessments and real estate websites may be considered as a tool to estimate the value of the security. And it's up to the loan approval official to determine if an appraisal is needed to assure adequate security exists for the proposed loan. If an appraisal is deemed necessary, applicants will need to pay an appraisal fee. And the cost of the appraisal fee is currently $775. But that can be rolled into the loan as well. All right, next slide, please. A little on our grant eligibility and terms. At least one applicant in the house must be 62 years of age or older for the household to qualify for a grant. Applicants receiving grant-only funding do not need a credit evaluation, and income limits for the grant program are based on the number of people that are in the household. The adjusted household income must not exceed 30% of the adjusted median income for the applicant to be eligible for grant assistance. Repairs must be eligible for purposes to qualify for grant funding. The maximum lifetime grant is $10,000. Before grant funds are distributed, the applicant must sign a grant agreement. In this grant agreement, it states if the home repairs made with the grant agreement is sold within a 3-year time period of signing the grant agreement, the full amount of the grant must be repaid. Next slide, please. A little on the loan eligibility side for home repairs. The applicant must have a reliable income source, and the adjusted household income must not exceed the very low income limit of 50%. Income banding does apply to our loan funds. In order to be eligible for our 504 loan or grant, the adjusted income at the time of the loan grant approval and loan closing must not exceed the applicable very low income limit, which is 50% of the median income. The repayment ability is based on their total debt ratio, and applicants cannot have a total debt ratio that exceeds 46%. Credit requirements for loan funds will require that the applicants have a credit history that indicates a reasonable ability and willingness to meet their debt obligations. Generally, applicants with a credit score of 620 or higher do not need further documentation. Applicants with serious delinquency or delinquency of federal debt would need to be further examined. The applicant must have a credit history that demonstrates a reasonable ability and willingness to meet their debt obligations, and applicants with limited credit are allowed to use non-traditional sources to demonstrate reliable credit history, such as electric, water, or phone bills. Next slide, please. Little on the terms of the program. The maximum initial loan amount, or the minimum initial loan amount is $1,000 and the maximum is $40,000. The fixed interest rate is 1% with a term up to 20 years. So as you can see, for every $1,000 borrowed, it's less than a $5 a month payment. The mortgage required is required for loans of $7,500 or greater. So at that point in time, we have to use a closing agent. And the maximum loan grant combination is $50,000. Loans under 7,500 are not secured against the property. Next slide, please. Little on completing repairs. The work is completed by a licensed and insured contractor if required by the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. Rural development does not create bid forms. We recommend that applicants get at least 2 detailed and itemized bids so they can compare. However, we can accept 1 bid if that is reasonable. If a property is built prior to 1978 and work disturbs painted surfaces, lead-based paint requirements would need to be followed. We recommend applicants get 2 detailed and itemized bids. So I already said that. Major health and safety issues of the home need to be addressed. Not all existing hazards need to be removed. However, the property cannot continue to have major health and safety hazards after the planned repairs are made. Rural development no longer does a site visit. However, if there is a major hazard, the applicant or contractor will usually let us know. The applicant does choose their own contractor. Rural development does not select them. A pre-construction conference and construction contract process. Prior to the work beginning, pre-construction conferences are held with all parties. The bid, contract, start date, and completion dates, and any other requirements along with the payment process are discussed. Next slide, please. Just an idea, so you have of typical repairs that we can help with. We have roof replacements if it's leaking, can be grant eligible. We help with a lot of well and septic replacements or water sewer line repairs, replacement of a furnace, siding, window replacements, and then accessibility repairs such as ramps, moving laundry facilities to a main level, or replacing tub surround with a low lip shower surround. Those are some of examples. Our loan funds do have more flexibility. Any repairs tied to the house are eligible. And for example, we're not going to fix a furnace if the roof is leaking. So we're going to want to identify all the repairs and make sure they are addressed. Next slide, please. Some restrictions: we cannot assist in the construction of a new dwelling with the 504 program. We can't make repairs to a dwelling in a poor condition that when repairs are completed, the dwelling will continue to have major hazards. We can't pay for off-site improvements except for necessary installation and assessment costs for utilities. We are unable to help with installation of concrete or asphalt driveways. Although improvements to make the dwelling accessible and usable for a household member with a disability is an eligible purpose. Landscaping is ineligible in the 504 program, and we cannot refinance any debt or obligation that the applicant incurred before the date of application. We also cannot move a mobile home or manufactured home from one site to another and pay for packaging fees for profit entities. Also, we can't put our funds for site preparation, grading, foundation, planting, seeding, etc. And we cannot construct new decks. Existing decks can be repaired if there is a safety hazard that exists. Next slide, please. One more. And the next slide here just kind of shows you an example of some past projects that we've completed. This one had a lot of different funding sources going into it with the Rural Development Loan and Grant and some Minnesota Housing Finance Agency funds. There was quite a turnaround in this house. We did siding, windows, roof, gutters, repaired a bearing wall, installed the sidewalk, did some electrical updates. And this one was prior to 78, so it did have some lead-based paint clearance and testing done. Next slide. And we have one more example here. I mean, this one just kind of goes to show you there was almost $20,000 of repairs put in. They had a less than $100 a month payment, and they got new siding, roof, and windows. So it shows you the affordability of our 1% loan. All right, next slide. We're getting to the end here. I just have a couple website references here for you. There's some first link to program income limits. The income limits are based on the adjusted household income, which follows income banding. So you can reference that site to find out. It's a 1 to 4 person household, has one income limit, and then the 5 to 8 person household. And then the second link there is our property eligible mapping tool. So you can go on there to see if the house is within our eligible area limits. But typically that's with a population of less than 20,000. Or they can't be located within a MSA area that's been deemed ineligible. So you can go on there and find out the property eligibility. And then the third link is our Minnesota Rural Development's main page website, which shows information on all our programs previously mentioned. Next slide. Any questions for me on the 504 program or any of our programs? All right.
Thank you, Angie. We'll take some time at the end in case somebody comes up with some questions in the meantime. They will have another opportunity. So and we'll move on to the team from AEOA. We've got Randy and Jean joining us. I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, my name is Randy Matfield. I'm the Assistant Housing Director with AEOA with oversight on the weatherization program. I've been working with the Minnesota weatherization program for about 18 years, and I'm looking at the lighting on my camera now, and I apologize, it's kind of dark where my face is showing. So sorry about that. 18 years with weatherization, want to talk about opportunities for energy conservation and saving you some money through the weatherization program. I think we'll start out just for a primer. Bear with me, there's a 2.5 minute video on the next slide that'll get the discussion going. And after that, I can fill in some gaps and holes and receive questions. So we can go ahead and play the video.
Hi, I'm Paula. I work for Minnesota's Weatherization Assistance Program. The best part of my job is helping people like you solve energy-related problems in their homes. This makes their homes more comfortable and healthier too. Our program's improvements save you energy and money. In fact, we can help you save up to hundreds of dollars every year. I'm on my way to my next job site. Many of the homes in this neighborhood were built decades ago. Lots of them use older, inefficient heating, cooling, and ventilation systems. They have poor insulation and air leaks too. If you live in an older home, it probably loses heat in the winter and cool air in the summer. That sends your money right through the walls and windows. Many people think they can't do much to increase the efficiency of their homes. But there are lots of steps you can take right now. And our weatherization program is here to help. Across our state, Minnesotans are weatherizing their homes, transitioning to new, efficient systems, and using clean energy. All right, I'm at the job site, and I'm ready to do my next home performance review. I'll evaluate the home from top to bottom, and I'll figure out what needs fixing, what needs upgrading, and what needs replacing. Best of all, if you qualify, it's free. With improvements through the weatherization program, along with a few things you can do yourself, your home can be more comfortable, efficient, and safer. And who doesn't like that? Minnesota's Weatherization Assistance Program is part of a federally funded national program of the U.S. Department of Energy. The program is administered by the Minnesota Department of Commerce through weatherization providers in your part of the state. So, who can participate? Renters and homeowners can apply. We give priority to households with elderly or disabled family members, families with high energy consumption, and families with children. The program's eligibility is based on income level. Come along and I'll explain how the program can save you money and how weatherizing can make your home more comfortable and healthier too. So keep watching.
And we might need to stop the link or it'll go on to the next video. So with that, we can go to the next slide. They did talk about the federal funding. And one of the things I think that we need to be conscious of is it is designed as a low-income participation program. So we did throw up a slide here just to give you an idea of the income limits. If you have any question on this, I would recommend calling your local service provider. There are some categorical eligibility scenarios where if you're in HUD-assisted multifamily home and some other properties where just the fact that you are living in that property would be eligible. So there are other ways to qualify eligibility-wise. So just wanted to point that out. Weatherization program does use a joint application through the Minnesota Department of Commerce. It serves for both the Energy Assistance Program and the Weatherization Program. And so general rule of thumb is if you qualify for energy assistance, income-wise, you would also qualify for weatherization. So wanted to point that out as well. We do look for homes that have high energy burden, meaning the percentage of income being spent on heat and electricity is higher than the norm. And we also have priority points for elderly, disabled, or young family members. So we can go to the next slide. So let me back up a little bit. The program started in 1971. So it's been around over 50 years. Originally, it started with the intention of decreasing our nation's dependence on foreign oil. And that was because we realized that a large percentage of our homes were heated with fuel oil. And you can imagine over 50 years, the program has evolved. Back then, we were literally stacking hay bales around the perimeter of your house to try to cut down on the wind blowing in. And we were caulking windows and adding insulation where we could. Today, we look at the house as a system. And we, like the video showed, will send a certified energy auditor out to your home to do a whole house assessment. And that assessment in itself can take 2.5, even 5 hours to collect all the data and to test your furnace and to test your water heater and to climb through your attic and to look at health and safety items. From there, they develop a scope of work that they intend on doing, and then they have to start doing cost analysis. And so the program looks at, for example, insulation as a cost benefit. So if it costs $1,200 to add insulation to your attic, will the program save you $1,200 over the next 20 years? And that's just an example. Everything is contingent on that cost analysis. And if it does prove cost effective, then we're allowed to go ahead and do that work at no charge to you and make those improvements to your home. The other thing we look at is health and safety. There's some simple health and safety things. Our motto is do no harm. We do not want to come into your home and tighten it up and exacerbate a problem with, say, mold or indoor air quality. So we're looking at bathroom fans that exhaust humidity and moisture. We're looking at proper chimneys and venting. We're looking at smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors. real fundamental, basic house as a system type health and safety items that we want to ensure are working and at capacity before we leave. So we conduct the energy audit. We have a list of recommended measures. We may do some of the work with some in-house installation crews, and we may contract out some of the work. Like if we determine that your furnace is dangerous and you need a new furnace, we might contract that out through a furnace contractor to replace that furnace for you. Of course, anytime we replace a furnace, we're looking to get the highest efficiency possible and upgrade. So in the end, I believe the average savings for a home that has been weatherized in the state of Minnesota lands right around 30% energy savings and cost per year. So not all homes are that successful, and some homes are more successful. As you can imagine, some homes get high efficiency furnaces and some don't, based on that energy savings calculation. So there's a lot of good things we can do: furnaces, water heaters, refrigerators, lighting, insulation, air sealing. There are case-by-case scenarios where we can address roof leaks, electrical panel upgrades, dangerous wiring in attics, those types of things. And so I guess the main thing I want to impress upon folks is this is not a fast process. We schedule an energy audit. It takes several hours with somebody in your home crawling through every nook and cranny. And then when we send the crews out, they have to perform a lot of those same tests because they want to verify the conditions when they come in. And then they have to test again when they leave to show that they actually made a difference and they improved the situation in the home. And then after the crew is done, we send our home energy assessment auditors back out to your house to do a quality control inspection. And again, they spend several hours documenting and making sure that the crews didn't take any shortcuts and that the quality is there. And so this whole process from start to finish is supposed to span 90 days. And I can tell you, in the real world in Minnesota, with winter and weather and other factors that are beyond our control, it's not uncommon for these jobs to span 6 months or more. And you do need to provide access to your home when people are available. So that's just kind of one condition, if you will, that I want to share and make sure people are aware of. So I didn't think to add any links like the previous wonderful presentation that Angela gave us. So I'm going to copy and paste a link into the chat to the Minnesota Department of Commerce weatherization information page. And give me just a second here. There you go. So the program is administered through the Minnesota Department of Commerce. That's where AEOA gets its funding. Minnesota Department of Commerce has a wonderful webpage. With that link, you can get right to it. Gives you all the information, where the service providers are, et cetera. And so local contacts for this group: Aiken and Carleton County Weatherization is administered through Lakes and Pines Community Action. I've got their phone number there. Itasca County and Coochin County is administered through Kutaska Community Action with their phone number. And Cook Lake and St. Louis County are through AEOA, and you can reach us at the number listed. I also want to point out the Boyfort, Net Lake, and Fond du Lac tribal lands are all served through AEOA as well. So any folks interested in participating in those areas can reach out to the AEOA phone number. We will make sure to coordinate that work for you. That's all I have, pending any questions.
I have a question,
Go ahead.
actually two. Is there an asset limit for your program, Randy? And the second question is, do renters in low-income multifamily housing qualify?
Thank you. Good questions. There is no asset limit and there are no strings attached. There is no lien placed on the property. You can receive weatherization tomorrow and move out of your home, and there is nothing due and payable. It is absolutely cost-free to those that are qualified. As far as multifamily renters, multifamily buildings get a little bit sticky. And so I will say, if you are income qualified as a multifamily renter, yes, depending on the building and the size of the building and how many stories the building, the eligibility gets quite complicated, wherein 66% of the building occupants also need to be low income and need to qualify for energy assistance unless the building is determined categorically eligible as being HUD subsidized. And so there are a whole host of nuances with multifamily weatherization. The other piece of multifamily weatherization, just for awareness, is you can imagine weatherizing a 54 unit complex costs a lot more money than weatherizing a home. And so when we've got annual appropriations of, say, $1 million a year, just for round numbers, we are looking at, how do I say this, equitable distribution of service across our service territory. And if one building in one community is going to benefit from the majority of that funding, that puts up a roadblock because we're not able to deliver equitable service across the service territory. So I really want to caution folks with multifamily situations. We will look at them case by case, and we will do everything we can to serve in those situations. But we've got some barriers and some hurdles that we need to work through in order to do that. Any other questions?
Well, if no more questions, thank you, Randy, and we'll move on to Jean.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you. Do you have your
Alright.
video, Jean? We can't
I
see you.
Don't have a camera on this computer.
Okay, sounds good.
So you just have to listen to me today, I guess. So I'm Jean Pelletier. I am the Energy Assistance Program Manager at AEOA. And the Energy Assistance Program is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. It's a federally funded program that helps low income households pay a portion of their home heating and cooling bills. And you can go next slide, please. The low income eligible households receive payments that go directly to their energy vendor or delivered fuel company. Initial benefits average around $500 per household, and they can be up to $1,400 depending on the household's income and fuel costs. Next slide. Our new heating season that's coming up starts on October 1st of 2024. The applications are available already, and we are already receiving them. The deadline to apply for this heating season is May 31st of 2025. Next slide, please. Renters and homeowners can qualify. Assets are not considered in eligibility for the program. And the grants this year can range from $200 to $1,400. And the grants are based on the household size, income, fuel costs for the prior heating season, the type of housing, and the type of heating fuel. Next slide, please. There are several different emergency situations for households. And this is a separate grant than the original or primary heating benefit. That's for an emergency situation. So that would be a disconnect notice, or if a service is disconnected, 20% or less in a tank, and the company requires payment for delivery or a cash on delivery account. Household member over 60 years of age and has a current energy bill qualify under our senior current program. And then if there is a furnace or heating system that is not working for an eligible homeowner, we can potentially help with that. Next slide, please. These are the income guidelines for the upcoming heating season. It's 1 month gross income, and it's based on the number of people in the household. And next slide, please. We have a fairly new, I believe last year was the first year we launched the online application. So there is the link to that. That is also available on our website at aeoa.org. And next slide. Paper applications are also available. They can be picked up in one of our offices. We have them available at our Duluth office, the Virginia office, and in Hibbing. We can mail applications. They can be emailed, or they can also be printed off of our website at aeoa.org. Next slide, please. The information that's needed on the application is the name, address, and phone number. Let's see, the social security numbers and date of birth for all household members. We need the verification of income for 1 month, and we look at the 1 month prior to the signature date. We, on the 3rd page of the application, has the type of housing, so whether it's an apartment, a house, a mobile home, the heating fuel, which would be like oil, natural gas, electric. And then we also ask for the energy vendors and account numbers. And there's also a section for if there is an emergency with the household, because those do get prioritized. Next slide, please. The Energy Assistance Program here at AEOA serves St. Louis, Lake, and Cook County, which includes the Grand Portage Reservation. And next slide, please. These were numbers from October 1st of 2023 through September 12th of this year. So based on each county, on St. Louis County, about 7,500 households. Their average energy bill for the year was $2,600 with an average benefit of $516. Lake County, we served 303 households with an average energy bill of $2,800 and an average benefit of $499. And in Cook County, this includes Grand Portage, 151 households with an average benefit of $597. And next slide. And that is all that I have. Here is my contact information. The Energy Assistance Program does have information just on the AEOA's website of aeoa.org. Also, contact information, the application, some other information on the Energy Assistance Program. Is there any questions for me?
Thank you, Jean. We appreciate it. And now we're going to turn things over to Cameron with Equilibrium 3. And he will be our closing speaker for today's webinar.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me. Morning all, Cameron Kadabowski, he, him with Equilibrium 3. I have a relatively short presentation, so I'm glad I'm last. I can kind of wrap things up quick, I think. I want to start off with just a brief explanation of Eco 3 as a whole. For those that might not be familiar, Equilibrium 3 is a nonprofit in the Lincoln Park neighborhood of Duluth, and we primarily service that neighborhood and broader Duluth. Originally, we spun off of a parent organization under common ground deconstruction services, and over time have sort of changed our program depending on the available funding sources and services that we can offer. We're currently about pushing 30 people as far as staff goes. And we have a number of programs. I work on the energy side. We also have food access and farm side, Main Street economic development side, and general kind of community development and volunteer program. Next slide, please. So just some of the programs that we offer on the energy side. One of our core services is the home energy assessments that we do, otherwise called energy audits. We've kind of stepped into saying home energy assessments are just generally home assessments as an alternative to audit. Often you'll find that a lot of households are adverse to the concept of an audit, thinking, that means we're going to come in and audit them like a tax audit, and they're going to have to, pay, et cetera, or we're going to charge them. So it can be some complicated language there. The home assessment, I appreciate having AEOA on here, is pretty similar to that same standardized process. We'll run a blower door test to test how leaky the home potentially is. While we're doing that, we'll go around with some thermal cameras to identify specific areas of leaks, drafts, or poor insulation. We'll also do some check the HVAC system, do combustion safety tests, meter appliances, do plug load checks to see, how things are generally on the energy side in the home. And then we will give a follow-up report with next best steps recommended to improve energy efficiency in the home. And this will usually include payback periods and savings over time. We also offer home health checks in partnership with Minnesota Power for anyone that is in Minnesota Power electric utility territory. What those are is basically a small kind of 2-hour version of the audit where we're not actually running a blower door. We're just kind of coming and doing checks if there are any identified energy challenges that people have talked to Minnesota Power about and they get sent to us that aren't readily available for their kind of staff over the phone. So, if there are electric baseboards, for instance, that are running in the off season that the resident might not be aware of, it's creating a high peak in the bills, we can go check that out and troubleshoot. We used to be able to offer basically that to anyone that wanted to in Minnesota Power territory without stipulations, but as of 2024, they have to kind of go through Minnesota Power's filtering system first and then get formally approved to get sent back to us. We also do new construction blower door tests. So anyone that's building a new home, we often work with contractors that they have to meet code. We can go in and do those. Or if someone just wants nothing but a blower door, we can also run those and not do the rest of the assessment. And then what we really value most are some of our free weatherization and follow-up services for our income eligible residents. So again, a little bit of overlap with AEOA services, but one thing to note here is that the home assessments and our free follow-up weatherization, whether that's some minor air sealing or insulating an attic, spray foaming rim joists, we use a different income threshold for that. So whereas AEOA and our CAP agencies use the 200% federal poverty level, we have a higher threshold at the 80% area median income. And so it tends to be significantly higher. For example, 80% AMI for a household of one is around 53,000, whereas the 200% poverty level, I believe, is somewhere in the 20s. So it jumps up significantly and lets us service a larger kind of population. Our programs are typically limited to renters and owners, 1 to 4 units. Our free kind of cost covered income eligible services at the moment are currently limited to just the city of Duluth. Our home assessments, if you are outside of the income eligible category, we also have a paid out of pocket option where it's $325, and then both utilities usually give back incentives after the fact. And those we can theoretically go anywhere if folks are willing to pay. We'll just charge a $325 and then a mileage fee. Next slide, please. Yeah, great. And then just a little bit on the backing up on the history of the program. Over time, ECO3 in our history have had about a 15-year experience in providing energy efficiency services. We started the Duluth Energy Efficiency Program under our different company name back in the day. really to develop a system of walking residents through a start to finish process of any sort of interest in energy efficiency to completed project. And back then, that was sort of around the recovery days in '08 and on. And back then, the conversion rate from interest to action was like around 2%. And the folks that got into our program, we got that up to about 60%. Additionally, we took a little bit of a pivot in 2012 with the floods in our region, recognizing that there was a lot of damage that was not really being addressed by FEMA or other federal agencies in a legitimate recovery. And so what we did was assist our residents in accessing funding and financing services and doing the client management to get people, often our basements are completely damaged and the heating system, your furnace is out because it's been underwater, right? And so helping our clients get those fully replaced through creative funding and financing options. And then over time, we have really iterated our program based on what resources are available. Us as an organization are largely funded by external grants. We have no, unlike, the weatherization assistance program, we don't have a direct line of funding that we get formula. It's largely competitive grants we're funded under. And so up and down, always offering a home assessment, always offering energy audits. And right now, with the onset of the Inflation Reduction Act, there are currently and going to be a lot more in 2025 federal incentives running through the state of Minnesota that are going to become available to our residents that we want to help them access. And that kind of steps into the future of our program on the next slide, please. So really where we want to go, recognizing that there are a lot of coming incentives to each of our households, is that we want to build on our existing home assessment to include a couple other things. One is really dig into more on the health and safety measures side. So identifying hazards in the home like lead, asbestos, mold, etc., and trying to either address those ourselves or push residents in the direction of organizations that can help them actually remediate those so we can continue our work. We want to do more work on the aging in place, age-friendly side, so making sure our residents can age well in their homes, identifying trip and fall hazards, identifying proper lighting, etc. I want to do more on the climate resilience side, so making sure our homes are really fortified in light of the heaviest impacts of climate change for our region. Do homes have proper sump pumps? Is siding and roofing adequate, etc. And then really the big thing for us is pushing the electrification side. So pushing technologies like heat pumps, water heaters, and fully moving our houses off of fossil fuels where possible. And we have done some work with the National Renewable Energy Lab to model out what makes the most sense for our community in how we can meet our energy efficiency and climate goals. And electrification packages with energy efficiency have really proven to be just that. We're additionally building a new energy training course, so that'll be a 25-member core of individuals to really go in and help us scale up the work up to doing the energy auditing and weatherization at scale. And what that's going to allow us to do is step outside of those city of Duluth boundaries that we've been limited to for so long and really cover broader northern Minnesota, a lot of our rural homes, and up into the Arrowhead, which is a little more applicable to some of the folks on the call here today. And then one of the other big services we want to do is offer energy navigation. So building on the work we did back then with DEEP to recognize that conversion rate is really important. In that houses need kind of a client manager to walk them through the entire process. So starting with energy audit, developing a scope of work, and then moving into actually, going out to bid with a contractor or having our energy training core do the weatherization first and then recommending a heat pump or a new furnace, et cetera, kind of start to finish. And we're supplementing that with a data tool that we're developing to kind of streamline that process so it's not super resource intensive. Next slide, please. And then I just want to touch a little bit on why the work is important, right? Specifically in our region, in our area of Duluth, there are a lot of old houses and a lot of low-income houses in those old housing stock because we know that often those populations are the ones that are forced into the worst housing, right? And so it has a compounding effect of where you have energy burdens where a 6% threshold spent on energy is what's considered affordable, where we have up into the teens and 20s. It is also allowing us to just generally improve our local housing stock. The Energy Training Corps is allowing us to increase capacity in the energy workforce and get more people as a step up into the trades earlier in their careers. And then we have to do this work to meet our climate goals, flat out. So I just think it's important to note kind of a little bit of the why we do that. And then next slide. This is just how you can reach us. I'm also happy to give my direct contact info if anybody sees fit. But I think I'll stop there, try to get it done by 11.
Thank you, Cameron. Are there any questions before we get ready to wrap up?
I have a question, Cameron. When you're branching out into northern Minnesota, what is your anticipated timeline for that? And will you offer something like the energy audit that if you are not income qualified, you can pay for the audit? Can someone also that is not income qualified access your services on a fee basis?
Sure. Great question. Our timeline, probably, I want to guess, really kind of starting to do that work maybe next year. Our energy training core is going to be kicking off this fall, and that's kind of allowing us to have that added capacity to move up. But we want to give ourselves some time to, this is a brand new core we're building, and recognizing there are going to be some challenges to get over first. So probably into next year at some point. Our plan is that over a 3-year period, we're hitting 750 homes. I will say also FEMA has reached out to us to potentially do some work very near here, even before the winter, to do some flood recovery work, recognizing that earlier this spring and summer we had a lot of flood damage again, and there are a lot of houses that have heating systems that are currently non-functioning, and so we might do a little bit of a pilot of that, but the general programming probably about a year out until we can step into that space. And then yeah, right now, as far as the home assessments, we can step up all the way up the arrowhead if someone really wants to pay for those services, but and we can't offer really right now income qualified options for folks that are up there. We're looking to how we can make that happen, how we can maybe do batch services of if there's a community up the shore or up in northern St. Louis County, can we send a crew up there for 2 weeks, have them be readily available? And so maybe you're not necessarily paying, if you're doing the out of pocket, not necessarily paying for the mileage fees as well, because we're already going to be up there. If you're getting in within this 2-week time frame, this is kind of something we're considering, right? I get everything answered there?
All right, thank you. Thank you so much to our presenters today for joining us and sharing their wealth of knowledge. I know this can be a busy season as we start looking towards the colder months, and we will be sharing the information from today's session on our Facebook and LinkedIn pages in the coming days, and we'll also be sending out a link to the recording so that you can share this information with friends, family, and clients who might benefit from these programs. And before we jump off here, just again, those upcoming webinars that we've got on deck for the Quad A. We've got a Medicare changes for open enrollment 2024 coming up on October 17th. We'll be looking at Minnesota's multi-sector blueprint on aging and updates from the Arrowhead coming up on November 20th. And we'll be going into doing a repeat of the Housing and Older Adults 101, exploring the continuum of options. Coming up later on in December. So please look for those and make plans to join us for another one of our upcoming webinars. Other ways to connect with us if you are interested, you can connect with us on our website. You can get a hold of us via email. You can reach us on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel or on our LinkedIn channel. Thank you so much. Have a great day.